What's up YouTube, NCG here, bringing you a different kind of video today. So we're going to be doing a quick discussion on the new archetype Invoked, or previously known as Eidolons. Now this is the new engine, more than an actual deck, that came out in Fusion Forces, and it's expected to be one of the higher rivalries towards the Zoo deck. Now reasons being, it can be played in so many different decks. There's even a Zoo Invoke engine or deck. So I'm going to quickly go through the kind of decks that these guys can fit in, plus what they can do, and just general their own attributes. So these decks, or these cards, can fit in a range of decks. Now the main one is Wind Witch. So Wind Witch Artifact Eidolons, or Invokes as they're now called. Now the reason for this is the most powerful card, well, the most powerful fusion, or the most relevant fusion, is this one, Invoked Rigid, who basically is a Book of Moon during either player's turn, which is really, really strong. So just imagine having this guy out with a Crystal Wing, you just going off after first turn. He's kind of like the main one that's played in that deck. And then against Zoos, you've got Invoked Magnesia, because he's basically a vanilla 300 beta, and because he's an Earth attribute. So all these monsters need this guy, Alistair, and their specific attribute. So fire, water, wind, light, earth, and I'm missing one, which is the dark one. They need them attributes to then be made. But by using the fusion spell, you banish Alistair, and then you banish the other attribute from either your deck or your opponent's, your graveyard or your opponent's graveyard. Which is why Magnesia is very, very good against Zoos, because if they've left a Ratvia or anything in grave, you just banish it, and you're bringing out a big beater. So we'll go through each one. So we've gone with Magnesia, who's basically vanilla. We've gone through Rigid, who's basically the Book of Moon. We'll go into Mechba, who is basically once per turn during each player's turn, when a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated, you can send the same type of card, monster, spell, or trap from your hand to the graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, banish it. So he's basically the banish effect on top of an Ultimate Providence. Invoked Courteous cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. You cannot your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. This card can attack while in face down defense position, face up defense position. If it does, apply its attack for damage calculation. So he's basically a 2900 defender. Then we've got Invoked Purgatorio. This card gains 200 attack for each card your opponent controls. This card can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. If this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. So it's a very, very nice card, constantly beating through. The dark one is basically each player can only activate one monster effect per turn, and can only declare an attack with one monster per turn. So it's kind of like a slow the game down. Invoked Elysium is one invoked monster plus one monster that was special summoned from the extra deck. Must first be fusion summoned with the above fusion materials while face up on the field. This card is also treated as dark, earth, water, fire, and wind attribute. Once per turn during each player's turn, you can target one invoked monster your opponent controls. One invoked monster you control or in your graveyard, banish it, and all monsters your opponent controls with the same attribute as that monster. So it's a very, very nice board wipe, graveyard wipe, just clearly emptying your opponent's field and graveyard. So it's a very, very nice card for doing that. It's obviously a little bit harder to get out. Magical Meltdown is the field spell, which is why you'll play 3 Terraform in any deck that you kind of play this in. When this card is activated, you add one Alistair the Invoker from your deck to your hand. The activation of your cards and effects that include an effect that fusion summons a fusion monster cannot be negated. Also, your opponent's cards and effects cannot activate when a monster is fusion summoned this way. You can only activate one Magical Meltdown per turn. It is basically your protection of warning and strikes for your fusion monsters when they're brought out. It stops them being bottomless and just cleared off the board basically. Invocation. Now this is the hard one to get. The artwork is amazing, absolutely beautiful and secret, and I've been told that this is it's about a £25 card now. Obviously that's only what I've been told, so I can't guarantee that yet. Fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand as fusion materials. If summoning an invoked fusion monster this way, you can also banish monsters from your field and or either player's graveyard as fusion materials. If this card is in your graveyard, you can target one of your banished Alistair the Invoker, shuffle this card into the deck, and if you do, add that card to your hand. You can only use this effect once per turn. So basically Invocation lets you recycle itself and your Alistairs back to hand, so you're constantly going next turn. Alistar. During either player's turn, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, then target one fusion monster you control. It gains 1,000 attack and defense until the end of the turn. If this card is normal summoned or flip face up, you can add one invocation from your deck to your hand. So basically the idea is if you don't open up with this guy, as long as you open up with Terraforming or this, you activate this, search this out, normal this, search that out, gone with a circle. Right, we'll start with Windwitch and the reason why it's so good. Now the reason Windwitch is so good is, like I said before, you can end the board. Windwitches lock you into wind monsters for the special summons, but it doesn't stop you normal summoning Alistar, searching out your field spell, going into Rigid, and Rigid is just there to protect your monsters, so book a moon anytime you want. So it's probably the strongest one available. Plus with the artifacts in there as well, it gets to use Mechba quite easily. And then, like I said, against Zeus, and if you're playing Maxi, which is quite nice because you get a second use out of Maxi, you can get into your Magnolicia. So that's kind of like the main deck of why it's so strong in that deck. I personally think it'll work really well in a Kaiju deck for the pure fact that if you have a hefty amount of Kaijus in there, yes, it can get cloggy, whatnot, but the Kaiju engine has so many different attributes that you can access these quite easily. Plus the fact that any deck that can main a Kaiju without it being an issue, in my opinion, gets an upper hand for the pure fact that Kaiju is just so strong. So I mean, imagine merely got a Crystal Wing and a Regid, you Kaiju that Regid, and then off you're going. You can start fusioning off. Other decks that people are using: Blue Eyes for the Mechaba negation. People are thinking about putting them in Mermails just for a Coitius. Whether that's useful or not, I don't know. You can put them in zoos. Obviously, you have access to a really big Magnolicia, and you can put them in any fire deck. The main issue with this deck, or the main issue with the engine trying to put it into anything, is at minimal it's 11 card main deck, because you really need to get your Magical Meltdown. So if you're not already playing Terraformings, you're going to be playing 3 Terraformings, 3 of this. You then want at least 2 Invocations because they recycle themselves, and then you want your 3 Alistars. So straight away you're onto an 11 card engine, and then with an extra deck that can sometimes be really, really tight, you're then trying to put in the right ones. Now obviously, like I said, these are probably the 3 main ones that you want to be going for every single time, but Purgatorio is also a very, very nice card to use. Again, it works against Metaphors if they have Metaphors get into the grave, because you can banish their Metaphors and off you go with a Purgatorio, which is why in the Windwitch build you could probably get away with playing those 4 and being happy with it. You can obviously play Elysium because I think it's such a strong card, and it's not that hard to make in Invoked Windwitch because you're always using your extra deck. So, you know, I think this is probably your standard kind of, this needs to go into, like, these are the bare minimums for a Windwitch deck. Which is fine, because if you're taking out a Terratop engine in a Windwitch deck, you're okay with this. Kaijus don't rely on the extra deck so much. You can put in like trade-ins and stuff like that for draws to try and get them off, to try and get to these quicker. But you've got 6 chances, actually no, 9 chances to kind of get your plays off. So you've got 3 of these, and 3 Terraformers. That's 9 cards out of a 40 card deck to try and get one of these going. So yeah, it's very, very unlikely that you won't be able to play off the combo. Ideally, you want this or a Terraform in hand for the protection, but there's no out-and-out guarantee for that. So yeah, this is the Invokes or the Eidolons. It's a very interesting deck. I'd keep my eyes peeled for it. Keep an eye out because they could be causing some problems or quite a few problems in the meta at this moment in time. The question is just how effective will Windwitches be if they lose the Terratop engine? Well, in answer to that, not too much if you're not relying on, you know, the Speedroid gear, you know, and going from there. In regards to putting it in zoos, yes, I think it works really well if you're not playing the Kaiju engine, because the reason you play the Kaiju engine on top of clearing your opponent's board is purely to have bigger beaters, because sometimes zoos, like, they lose out massively to stuff like Barrier. So if they barrier an XYZ, you can still get out very, very big 3k beaters to try and beat off and protect you for the turn. The question is just whether you have that space in your deck to play it. I mean, the Artifact engine on standard is probably about 6 cards. The Kaiju engine is about 7 cards. So you're still questioning to try and find those extra 4 to 5 cards to put into your into your main deck. The extra deck you can is obviously down to choice, so you do have a bit more wiggle room there, but it's more the main deck trying to fit 2, 3 and 3, plus your 3 Terraforming in there. Anyway, so that's just a breakdown of the Invokes. I hope this helps. I hope this gives you an idea of what they're going to be doing, what to be looking out for, and what to expect from them. So yeah, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share, and until next time, guys, see ya.